Hey, this is Brian Jenkins again. Got a little less than a minute to go, and we'll be getting started right around on time. And I will be holding questions till the end. So if you have any questions, use the GoToWebinar tool to submit questions, and we'll roll through those at the end. Hopefully the presentation will take care of a lot of them, but I'm sure there's going to be some questions that may not be clear or covered in my presentation. So I am Brian Jenkins. I work for RunSignUp, and I primarily work with our timers and event management companies today. And the purpose of today's webinar is to walk everyone through our new sign-up app and check-in apps. I'm going to be focusing specifically on our web versions of them versus our iOS and Android versions, primarily because they're a little bit easier to demo, and most of the questions that I'm getting from our customers, they're still utilizing laptops versus tablets, although I do see in the near future people wanting to utilize tablets more. So the first thing to let you know, this is more of an advanced user session. We do expect that you have used RunSignUp before in some of our tools, so there won't be quite as much walkthrough on some of the steps, but we will be providing you with a helpful follow-up email that includes a copy of the video, best practices, and links to some of our blogs that go into more minutiae detail on exact setup processes and things like that. So I appreciate you coming. Hopefully the format of this webinar is familiar to you if you've been to any of the ones before. If you haven't, we try to keep this pretty quick in 30 to 35 minutes with a few minutes afterwards for questions. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and hop right into the kiosk system so we can start taking a look at this. So where I am right now is signup.app.runsignup.com, and we're going to look at the admin interface of how to configure this in a second. But I thought it'd be most helpful to see what this new sign-up app looks like and what the registration process looks like, and make sure that we understand what we're configuring before we actually configure it. So I'm going to go ahead and type in my name, and I've got some stuff auto-filled in the browser here just to save us the process of having to go and watch me type too much. So I'm going to highlight a couple things here. So the first thing is, if you have a zip code automatically entered in here, it will autofill the city and state. Since I autofilled the browser, you really didn't get to see that, but that is one of the new features. We have a zip code API so that for a lot of timers, they want to know the city and the state that the participant's from. You can have that autofill based off the zip code entered in this address field. Now, the other thing to note is that the fields that are shown here are fields that I have chosen as this race organizer that I want to collect. You would not necessarily have to collect all of these fields, but these are fields that I've chosen to collect. So in the next step of the process, I'm choosing my event, the 5K or the 10K. I kept it relatively simple. This is something that you can have whatever events that you'd like to have available for kiosk registration in this process. So I'm going to go ahead and sign up for the 5K. I'm going to agree to the waiver. And this waiver is the waiver that you inserted into the RunSignUp wizard when you were configuring the event. So next part, this is a key feature that a lot of the timers and event management companies have asked for, is T-shirt capabilities. It's here. I do have it enabled for this event. If you didn't want that for your kiosk, that is something that you could turn off. I'm going to go ahead and select my T-shirt size. Now, I want to pause on this particular step. And the reason I want to pause on this step is that we do work with quite a number of races that are USATF or have military discounts or teacher discounts, and specifically USA Triathlon discounts, or actually USA Triathlon memberships. I'm sorry, I misspoke. We actually have memberships integrated now. So if you're a USA Triathlon race director or timer, you would now have the capability to collect USAT memberships through the system. You can sell those one-day memberships or annual memberships right through the kiosk. You do not have to collect those paper entries any longer. Now, I have the USATF one here primarily because I didn't have a test version of a USA Triathlon integrated race, and I didn't want to mess up anybody's live race. So I'm going to indicate that I'm not a member, but if I was a member, I'd be required to enter my number. So again, I'm going to say, no, I'm not a member. I have donations enabled. You do not have to have this enabled either, but if you wanted to give people the opportunity to make a donation in the registration path, they could. So I actually turned this one on specifically primarily around expo registration or maybe packet pickup. We had a lot of requests for being able to support results notifications in Kiosk. I don't know if this is a great fit on day of registration, but you could turn this on. Participants could opt in for text or email notifications. Please note, if they have not done this before, they would still hit the text, and they have to reply yes in order to get their results notification. I thought this was a cool feature. Not necessarily the most helpful feature on race day, but something you could potentially use maybe the day before. So now that we get to checkout, it summarizes some information, what we bought, how much we owe, and a key feature on here, which is another request that we got based off our old kiosk capabilities, was coupon code. So I do have the capability to enter and apply a coupon code. I don't have one. And if I had the card swipe enabled, I'd be able to go through and select that card swipe and swipe it right through and fill it. So I'm going to go ahead and select cash and then hit continue. And now it's processed this and it's going to reset. I can reset for the next person. So that's a really quick overview of the registration process. And the next most important part of that is that we're going to discuss a little bit later is, okay, so now someone's registered, kind of what's the next step? And I'm going to talk about that at the beginning of our CheckIn app overview and discussion. So now that we've gone over that, what I want to do is go back to our main sign up app page. And so on this sign up app page, I want to show you the main page and some configuration options you have within the app. And this is the case whether you're using the iOS app, the web app, or the Android app. So the first thing is that on the top right-hand corner, you would click the search. Since I've already connected to my webinar test race, it's not going to find it. But let's say I wanted to connect with this Boy Scout half marathon. I'm going to click on that. I would need to know the password for this event, and the race must be enabled for the sign-up app for it to be found in here. And because you can see that virtually any race that's configured for the sign-up app is available here, and that's why we have the password on there. So once I enter that password and I drill into my race, I'm going to land on this somewhat generic page, but there's some really powerful things that we can do here. So the first thing is that I can click in the top left-hand corner, there's 3 setting bars that I can choose. And in these setting bars, it's going to take me into options that I can go in to configure this app. So let's go ahead and click into these settings. So these settings, and I think it's easier in the beginning to configure this in RunSignUp, and we're going to do that in a couple minutes, are the settings that I have chosen of the information I want to collect at this race through the sign-up app. So if I wanted to change, and you can have as many of these settings, or what maybe we might want to call presets, as you want. And you can even build them by clicking create a new setting right here in the app. But if I needed to, for race day, if I wanted to change from the webinar setting to the scoring data, I could right now, and it would change the registration process on this machine. So I can see a lot of great options here for, I want to ask different information at packet pickup, or I want to use the kiosk at an expo versus on race day. So that's the purpose of this, is you definitely, when you go in and you click on your race, the first thing you want to do is you want to click on the 3 bars in the top left-hand corner, click on settings, and you want to pick your preset if you don't want to use the default setting. So go ahead and then pick that, and now you've got the exact information that you're collecting. The next thing is, we're making a big deal that we're releasing out these card swipes, and that's definitely something we're going to talk about at the end probably, is we are in the process of getting USB, and the USB card swipes are specifically for laptops, and then headphone jacks, which are specifically for mobile swipers. We're in the process of getting them set up for sale. Unfortunately, we're having some issues with getting configuration for sales tax and making sure that we're selling a physical good for the first time, making sure that we're all compliant with that stuff. We're trying to get that done this week if at all possible. so that you guys can buy them. We're actually going to subsidize the cost of those. We're not going to give them away completely for free, but we are going to subsidize those so that people can use those in the field. And so with the mobile card swipes, when you plug them in, there's not necessarily an indication that it's functioning properly, but if it is functioning properly, if you did a test registration, when you get to the end of registration process, it will pop up and ask you to swipe the card. In the USB version, which would be for laptops, it gives you an instruction here that you should see if the USB device is connected correctly, you should see a green light lit on the device, and that should ensure that it's working correctly. So the last setting here is lock application, and locking an application would be if you didn't want people to be able to leave the this particular race, you can set a password on this. Now, to carry over on this conversation of locking the actual app, one of the best practices that we're going to include in the email out to you is a Chrome extension if you're using a laptop, so that people cannot leave this page. They're locked into this page. They can't go check their Facebook or their email on your laptop. They are going to be locked in with this Chrome extension called Kiosk. And we're going to include that in the best practices and a link to it with a description and a video on how to add that to your Chrome browser. So I'm just going to check the questions real quick just to make sure that everything's working correctly. Yeah. So what we're going to do now is I'm going to drill into the admin section of RunSignUp. And in this admin section of RunSignUp, we're going to go check out how to, on the RunSignUp side, to configure this sign up app. So we're going to click on Go RaceDay. We're going to click on RaceDay registration, and we're going to click on Sign Up App. Now, so what we would do is once we land on this page, we would click Enable Sign Up App. We're going to enter a password. I typically put my password as a password hint because this is an admin-only section, so no one else would see this. And then we have the ability to set up app settings. Before I step into setting up app settings, I want to highlight the top part of this page. The top part of this page has links to the App Store for Apple and the Google Play Store for our Android app. So you just click on those and you can quickly go in and download the apps onto your phone or tablet. And then we also include the link to the Sign Up app that we were just looking at a minute ago right here, so you have them readily available. So let's go ahead and add a new setting for the app. So we add a new setting, and we can give the setting name. So this setting is what we would see when we're configuring the app as to what type of what type of preset is this. So you might want to label it so you know that this is your packet pickup option. So the general options at the top of the page here, most of them are self-explanatory. The only couple that I want to highlight is the allow registrations when there is no internet. That is not functional at this point. That will be something that will function in the future. And yes, card swipes will actually work even if there isn't an internet connection, but it will not actually process the card. It has to have an internet connection when there is a card. You would have to also download the data off each device and then hand it to your timer. If you are the timer, you would need to then insert that into your scoring system. So the most important settings on these general options is allow registrants to pay with cash. That's something you want to offer. And then this one, I really want to spend some time on hide fields below that are skipped. So you want to check this in general. So if you go to the below steps and select any of these options, it just makes them not required. So what you want to do is check this box if you want to streamline or simplify registration on this app. So if you don't want to offer donations, you don't want to offer corral, store, custom questions, tech partners, fundraisers, results notifications, add-ons, memberships, and all you want to do is get basic scoring information, no address, no city, no state, no country. You just want the really, really basic information. You would go in here and configure this, and you want the hide fields below that are skipped because that's going to clean up and get rid of all these. If you don't check this and you check the boxes below, They will just be questions that are not required. So I really wanted to highlight that because I think that is something that's that could, maybe not be as obvious in the beginning when you're configuring this. So once you save the settings, it's now available. If we go back to our sign up app, we enter registration mode. We can go back, actually exit registration mode. We can go to the settings that we were at a little earlier. We can select packet pickup. We're going to go back, enter registration mode, and you can see it's a really simplified registration process. So that's an overview of the sign up app. There's a couple rules that I would want to mention. The first thing is, and this happens quite often, so I wanted to make sure that we kind of broke this out, is that in your race wizard, you need to go into step 3 of the race wizard and make sure that you have your pricing enabled for RaceDay. If you don't have your pricing enabled for RaceDay, when someone goes to sign up, you're not going to be allowed to sign up. And you will also likely want to extend registration beyond the actual time of the race. So let's say your race is on Saturday the 20th, and your race is at 8 a.m., you'd likely want to keep registration open until 8:15 a.m. And the reason is that if somebody's in line and the race starts at 8 a.m. and they try to finish at 8:01 and you only have it closing at 8 or 7:59, they would not be able to complete that transaction. So I really wanted to hammer that home because most people that are in the field know this, and they know that they're going to have a little bit of buffer time, beyond when the actual race occurs. You may not want to do that, but as long as you understand that, that's fine. So that's an overview of the sign-up app. I think we'll have a bunch of questions afterwards that I can do some clarification on, but I just wanted to do a general overview of it. So the next part of this is that we're going to talk about the check-in. So on this one, I'm actually going to start in the admin dashboard because there's a lot more configuration options, and I really want to do an overview first before we go and look at what you would see as an admin. So again, we would click on Go RaceDay. We would click on RaceDay Check-in, and then we're going to click on Check-in App. So before we start talking about some of the features and the different types of applications that we offer for the check-in, I want to talk about a term and then the process so that it helps you, maybe if you haven't done these types of things before, it will help in the process that I'm describing. So the first thing is that I want to discuss a concept that's called dynamic bib assignment. You may never have heard of it before. You may have heard of it but not really sure what it means. So dynamic bib assignment is, in the beginning, this is probably 6-7 years ago, running stores wanted to generate ways for people to come into their store. And races are a great way to do that, and having packet pickup is one of them. Well, if I own 8 stores across the city, doing packet pickup was just really technically not possible. So new systems like RunSignUp and ChronoTrack Live and other systems out there have built check-in systems that allow you to assign bib numbers against the database, and they literally could be anywhere in the world, but typically, they're across different places in the city. So participants are showing up at any one of those 8 running store locations, and they're having a bib assigned to them dynamically at that store, and it's going back to the cloud and being stored there. So that's a really important thing to understand. So dynamic bib assignment means there's no pre-assigned bib numbers. And there are hybrids of this, but I don't want to go into this right now. But there's no bib numbers assigned, and a participant shows up, and a bib number is assigned right then and there. So, and now to fit this back into the sign-up app is, in the sign-up app, participants are now walking up to your either your running store or to packet pickup or on race. They're signing up in this app, and they are they're signed up, and now they need to get a bib because they want that bib. They get a T-shirt, they may not. It's something that you need to figure out, what is that process going to look like. So I'm going to kind of talk through that. So generally in the races that I have attended, there's 2 desks. There's a RaceDay registration desk where you nicely have a tablet or a laptop set up for registration, and line for pre-registered participants to go ahead and pick up their bibs, whether the signs are pre-assigned. The bibs have been pre-assigned, or if the bibs have, they're doing dynamic bib assignments. So what you want to discuss internally with your race team, as well as potentially with your timer, and especially with your timer actually, is how does that work? Is there an attendant at your race day registration table assigning bib numbers, and they're using this check-in system we're about to look at? Or are they being bumped over to the main check-in line because they're in the main database that everyone has access to? I'm not going to tell you that there's a right or wrong way. I would say that more commonly what happens is that there are more races that have a single check-in line. So you sign up at the race day registration desk, and then you get bumped into the main check-in line. So that's the most common thing. So I wanted to just kind of go over that and how that fits with the sign-up app, because that's a really common question that I get, and I did want to define what dynamic bib assignment meant, if you had ever had anyone ask that. So now just jumping into the check-in app, at the top of the page, we have 3 icons and a link, and I'm just going to quickly go over each one of them. So the Chrome Web Store, this is specifically a Chrome app that is designed for laptops, and it's going to be primarily utilized by people who want to use a laptop and want to do printing. I want to be clear today, I'm not going to be discussing the printing functions, because it's somewhat of a unique thing that not a lot of people are doing printing of labels or receipts after someone has checked in. It is a capability we have, but it is limited only to the Chrome App Store, and it does require some additional hardware to be purchased. We have an iOS app and an Android app, and then we have the web app. So functionally, between the iOS, the Android, and the web app, the most important difference is going to be in the iOS and Android apps is the QR code scanning capability. So it opens up the camera built into the phone or tablet, and it allows you just to scan QR codes that participants bring to you to be checked in. And I'm going to talk a little bit more about that here in a minute, but that is functionally the biggest difference between them. So the next thing is that you need to set up a password, just like the sign-up app. I put my password again in here, and then you need to set up when you want the check-in app to become available and when you want it to stop being available. So an important note, like we talked about a little bit earlier, we probably want it to be available maybe 15, 20 minutes, maybe even longer, maybe even several hours after our race has started, so that it's still available to us. So just like the sign-up app, we have the presets that we need to set up. So the presets are going to be, what do we want to show in the check-in app, what do we need to be shown when we're checking someone in, and what do we want to be editable in the check-in process. So starting here, what we're going to do is we are going to decide what information that we want to show. So my race is pretty straightforward. I want to show bib number in the table, I want it to be shown in check-in, and I want it to be editable during check-in. I also want to show the age of the participant and the gender of the participant, and that's not necessarily something you have to do, but some people like to do it as a check. Maybe you catch a handful of people who have never, who maybe put in the wrong gender, but probably not. You'd have to be really paying attention to see that. And then the last one, which is probably the most important one beyond bib number, would be giveaway. So you want that to show in there so that if I'm checking in the participant, I know what size t-shirt they would want. You can enable any of these other items that you would like. If you're selling additional items and participant has bought that, you could put on registration add-ons, for example. So on the general options, there's a couple really important options here. So the first thing is that if you have a team event, I would highly encourage you to enable search by team name, and also enable team name in the app, because this allows you to much more easily, if a team captain were to show up for like a social team event, you could sort by everyone on the same team, or click on that team name and then get everyone on that team, which is a huge time saver. The next thing is search links by registration. I think this is the biggest time saver that there is. So search by linked registrations means quite a number of participants sign up together with their family or friends, and often they show up together or intend to have one person pick up everyone's bib. Search linked registrations allows you to really leverage that. So in RunSignUp, they sign up in a single transaction. If they show up to all the packet pickup together or have one person pick up their information, you can use the search linked registration to say registered with. You hit that, and it pulls up everyone in the same transaction. You do not have to look everyone up again. So big time saver there. The other options that I wanted to highlight here is the management option. You can turn on the ability for download queue options. You can turn on the ability for download all participants. What this does is inside the app, if you were to lose an internet connection and you needed to get the database out of the system, you have these options turned on. So you can download all the data, or the queue would be the data that has been changed, i.e. the bib numbers that have been assigned in this machine. The printing options are replacement tags. This is about the printing stuff that I talked about earlier. If you have a lot of questions about that, reach out to your account manager or reach out to info@RunSignUp, and we would walk you through that. Once you've done all your configuration, you can also hit save. We do have some options down here around question responses. If you want question responses to show up in the CheckIn app, you can specify these things. All right. So what we're going to do is we are going to look at the check-in system now. So what we're going to do is we're going to go to runsignup.com/check-in. And if I did not already have this race, I would hit add a race. I would search for my race, and I've already added this. But then if I wanted to, let's say, add this pierogi race, it then asks me for my password. Once I add my password, it opens it up here. And once I get to this step, I want to make sure that I select my preset, which is what information I want to show in the check-in system and what options I want turned on. And I want to not select the default display. It tells me the last time that the app has synced, and then I can hit check-in, and it would ask me my first name and last name, and that's for reporting purposes. That allows you to see, like, by person or by station, if you named it station 1, station 2, how many people have checked in at each station. So once I get on this screen, it's really straightforward. You should be able to train volunteers or race staff how to use this it's relatively straightforward. You can search by first name, you can search by last name, you can search by bib number. You can do an exact search or a like search, and so you're searching through names. Now, I did talk a little bit about the iOS app. If we have time, I'm going to try to jump over to the iOS app, but the iOS app does have that capability to do the QR codes. And so what those QR codes are is there is a QR code included in the confirmation email of every single participant. And we don't expect participants to remember their confirmation email, although some do. What we given you the capability is in the admin section of RunSignUp, you can send emails. So if you send emails, we do have a replacement tag in the back end of the system that you can utilize to send out a replacement tag that is the QR code. So you could send an email out Wednesday, Thursday, Friday of the event, whatever that you choose, and we've got this registration ID barcode. You would copy that, insert this into the email, and this would be something that the participants can bring to your race site, and you can scan with the iOS or Android app the QR code, and it will immediately pull them up. And if you do have those linked registrations turned on, you got the added benefit. You can check in everyone in their transaction. So this is kind of more of an advanced feature. We're seeing this with a lot of untimed events that are interested in this, but it's certainly a feature that any event is interested in utilizing can use. So that's an overview of the QR code capability. I do have that as something else, as another resource in the follow-up email afterwards. So going back to the check-in system, if I wanted to search for someone, easy enough. You search for name. I didn't spell it right. I pull up Bobby Bickle. I click check in, and I can assign him a bib number. Now the system is doing a check to see if this bib number has been assigned, if there is if there's an internet connection. So the other button here is that registered with button. What that allows you to do is to see if they registered with anyone else, and and Bob did not. So I can continue to check in each one of these participants. You can see it's a pretty easy process to go in and assign the bib numbers. It tells me the age, the gender, and their t-shirt, and I can configure more information in here before doing that. Now, if you have a check-in process that doesn't require bib numbers, you can't just check people in and not even assign bib numbers. That's an option that you would configure in the app. So the other features that I want to highlight here is that if you think that the app is running a little bit behind, you can kind of force a sync in the top right-hand corner, and it will tell you, when the last time it synced. So now I just updated it at 2:30 and 9 seconds. You also can click on management, and this is some of those things that I configured in the app a little bit earlier, and it gives me the option to download a queue, download all participants, go back to the RunSignUp dashboard. Now this download debugging information would likely not be available to you, but since I'm an admin of RunSignUp, that it is. So that's a quick overview of the check-in system, and just to kind of tighten everything up if I were to go and sign up for the race. So let's go ahead and do that. And I want to show you guys kind of what that looks like. You don't have to do it a whole lot, but I want to show you that in the check-in app. We're going to select cache. We're now in the system, and we're going to sync now. And it's saying 5 participants, and roughly in the next 30 seconds or so, a new participant is going to show up in the system. There we go. So Testy is now available. So that was everything I had, on my agenda. What I want to do is I want to start digging into your questions now to kind of see maybe what was unclear and start looking at that. So the first question is this available after you're done? Absolutely. Everyone who's attended is going to get an email afterwards with the link to the video. So the next question is, do we extend the date on the registration fee if our fee changes after a cutoff date? Right now we have our first one ending on our first deadline. Do we extend the date on the registration fee? So the pricing, I believe the question is, how do we set up our pricing if we're using the sign-up app? The pricing in RunSignUp needs to match exactly what your advertised price is. And when I'm talking about extending the time, let's say your cutoff time for your race is 8 a.m., I'm talking about extending the time to like 8:15 or something like that. Not necessarily modifying your pricing or anything like that. Another question is, why is it a good idea to keep the check-in app after the race has begun? And there's a really good reason why you keep the check-in app or the sign-up app afterwards. It's that if you truly shut down your race at race time, then great. But if you go to 8:01 on the sign-up app or the check-in app, that can negatively impact you if you're still working with one person who understands that the race has already started or is starting. So you don't have to do that, but we would encourage you because you could potentially have people that are not in the database. So we have another question about barcode scanning. So barcode scanning is not something I would highly recommend. Barcode scanning requires, I wouldn't say maybe requires, it would be recommended that people need to print out their confirmation email, or you need to resend them their barcode scan. You need to buy a barcode scan, and it needs to be plugged into a laptop, and then you can scan their barcode, and it will pull their registration up. There is some additional configuration that you would need to do that. I've had some people that have not had a ton of success with it, which is why I intentionally did not, go over it a lot in the webinar. So the question is that can you run iOS and Android devices concurrently at an event? I would say I'm not sure. I know that the apps generally sync at the same time, but it would be probably in the best interest to have all web versions or all certain types. But what we'll do is I'll get some clarifications from our developers on whether having multiple different types of devices running concurrently is an issue. but I'm not 100% on that one. Next question is that once a participant registers, at what point can you assign the bib if the bibs are pre-assigned and you're not using the check-in app? Yeah, so I appreciate this question coming up because, so the question is that I go to the sign-up app, I register in the sign-up app, and you have, let's say, auto bib assignment turned on. And auto bib assignment would allow you to automatically have the bibs assigned, and this bib column would be filled. So that's one option that you have, and I would encourage that if you have a very good organized bib folder where you've got slots for each bib and it's very easy to keep them organized. If you're just kind of putting them in a stack, I would not necessarily recommend having auto bib assignment turned on. So that's one option that you have, and then the question again is at what point can you assign bibs if they are pre-assigned? So you can assign bibs as soon as the person is in the database, and the system can do that automatically. It cannot do it automatically by alphabetization, but that is an option that you could turn on afterwards as well. So the next question is, what is rapid check-in? So rapid check-in is primarily designed around users using barcodes. So we have some high volume races that are using the rapid check-in for barcodes, and you have to buy the barcode scanner like I talked about earlier. So with the new iOS and Android apps out, my experience would say that the QR code is far more reliable, and you can do that inside of the iOS or Android app, and then scan those QR codes without as much headache, because really what we've seen is without printing out the barcodes, they just don't read reliably. The question is it possible to change the fee for same-day registration? Absolutely. You could have a price, let's say it's $25 until 5 a.m. on the day of the race, and then it's $30 from 5:01 a.m. until 8 o'clock a.m. So you can set as many price points as you want, and you can even have the price kick in at any time. So the next question is, how do you delete one of the settings? I'm guessing they mean one of the presets. Let's see, I'm not exactly sure how you do that. Let's see if there's a way to do that. Yeah, so there's a remove button in the presets that you can click over here, and you can remove a preset if you didn't want to use it anymore. So the next question is, if you have only one clerk and one laptop for new sign-up and also bib assignment, what would be the best flow as an admin? Swivel the machine from the customer and the admin back and forth? Yeah, so if you only have one laptop and one for bib assignment, my recommendation would actually be to use, in that situation, auto bib assignment, and just have your bibs carefully organized so that you know that the next bib that's coming in is going to that person. So that way you would not have to spin the machine around. The person would just collect the cash if they pay with cash. And there is some downsides to having a single machine, because part of the check-in app that I neglected to mention is that it will tell you, if that person signed up through the sign-up app and they paid with cash, it would indicate that, so you would know to collect the cash. So you could do it with one machine, but I'd probably have auto bib assignment turned on. So the next question is that I knew this was coming. Can someone do multiple entries in the sign-up app without starting over again for each registrant? So basically multiple people in the same transaction. The answer is right now is no. We have that logged as a feature request. We also have age instead of date of birth as a feature request as well. We've got a few projects we're cleaning out right now. Once we get this cleaned out, we're going to revisit the app and look at getting these requests and feedback implemented pretty quickly. The next question is, can you use the check-in for a free event? You absolutely can use the check-in system for a free event. Next question, when using the app for registration, where do you select a team name? So we do not have team registration. I'm looking at somebody else in the room. Do we have team registration for the sign-up app? let me look to see if we have sign-up apps available. I don't think we have team registration. No, so we do not currently offer team registration in the sign-up app. So and the next question is there a price established yet for the card swiper? I assume you will need to get one for each laptop that you're using at CheckIn. Yeah, so we do have a price established for the card swipes. So if you're using the mobile one, we're going to sell them for $25. If you're looking for the laptop one, we're going to sell those for $50. And we're subsidizing those, so we're subsidizing 50% of the cost of those. We're really trying to push hard to try to get these out for sale right now. We didn't realize we were going to have so many issues with sales tax, and they are going to be device specific. The USB ones will only work on the laptops, and they will only work with RunSignUp. Same thing with the mobile ones. If you try to use our swiper on the Square app, it will not work, and vice versa. So the next question is, is the participant able to have their fee waived? Can we override the fee? I'm guessing what that person is asking is, can they get in for free, or can they, or maybe they might be asking about the processing fee. You would have the capability. Let's say you're charging $30 for an entry. You could go into our system and change that you wanted to cover the processing fee. One thing that I think we probably will potentially need to add is the option right here on the sign-up app settings to say cover the processing fee in the sign-up app, so that it gets $30 flat and they're not paying any extra processing fee in those scenarios, and give you guys the option to choose whether you want to do that or not. Is there a review page before submitting in the sign-up app? The review page is the checkout page, which summarizes what they put in their cart. And it has the coupon code on there as well as the credit card information. So the next question is, should you use the CheckIn app at packet pickup if you want to have team registration available? Well, since our sign-up app doesn't support team registration, you certainly could have the CheckIn app for team check-in and looking up if you're on a team, but it might not be the greatest fit at this point if you wanted to have team registration in our system to use that. So the next question is actually one I was hoping somebody would come in with. Is there a recommended tablet that works best with swipers? So it's a really generic answer at this point, but it's generic, but it does have specific specifications. So if you're looking at tablets, I would recommend looking at iPads with greater than 1 gigabyte of RAM and Android tablets that have greater than 2 gigabytes of RAM. So one of the things that it's tough to understand about these apps is that we're actually using the processing power of the machine, because you need the capability to be able to go offline occasionally, even if it's just for a few minutes because the internet glitches out. That's a key feature that our customers said they had to have, and that means we're relying on the actual capacity of the device. So again, 1 gigabyte or greater iPad, or take a 2 gigabyte or greater Android tablet. And in terms of, there are great refurbished stuff out there, and we're trying to find a particular one. We actually have like 6 different tablets in the office that we would highly recommend, and we're still testing through them to see which one, meets all the requirements. So the next question is, could you do comp entries? Yeah, so you could do comp entries in 2 ways. Because we support coupon codes, you could have coupon codes. I would be a little cautious about those coupon codes. They probably only have single-use coupon codes if you're doing comp entries, but you could do that. And of course, somebody could just select cash. That's the other option. Somebody just wanted clarification on the swipers. The swipers will be for sale for $25 for mobile devices, which would work on phones and tablets, and $50 for laptops. Next question is that could you have 1 laptop set as full sign-up for Teams and 1 laptop set for sign-up and 1 set for check-in? Yeah, absolutely. So we have some other options called Expo registration. If you really had to do team registration, you absolutely could use that. And you could have another one just for generic individual registration using the sign-up app that we reviewed today. And you could have another computer set up for check-in. So each one of them would work concurrently, and they're all pulling from the same database. So that's the last question. I really appreciate everybody's questions. I've got a couple people that we didn't cover their questions. I think we're going to reach out to them individually and get some clarification on them so that we can maybe answer those questions individually for them. I appreciate everybody coming. Again, there should be an email coming out hopefully by the end of the day around 5 o'clock Eastern time or so, hopefully, with some follow-up information to share with you guys and a recording of this video. So I appreciate you taking the time to come out. As soon as the swipers are for sale, we will get them out to you. And I hope you guys have a great day and appreciate the webinar too. Thank you.